there.
You can watch it for an hour straight on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and we are back for another episode of our Falcon and Winter Soldier spoiler review. My name is Aaron Knoll. I'd say host / moderator, but it's the two of us. I'm joined by Mr. Nicky Sullivan. How's it going, man?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Basically, what happens here is I'm the one who can talk slightly more. That's essentially what this boils down to at this point. So we are here talking about... You are on my left. We are here talking about the 5th episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, titled Truth. And I certainly think there was a lot of that told in this episode. I'll go ahead and pass it over to you before we kind of get into what we've been doing the last few episodes and kind of delving through them. But I want to kind of get your general thoughts on it before we get into it.
Yeah, the title Truth. I mean, I was expecting maybe Paul Pierce to show up. The Truth, Boston Celtics, great.
Would his stripper be with him too, or
we don't have to talk about that. The Justice in the American Way was another thing I thought when I saw Truth. But then I'm like, no, that's Superman. But yeah, this is a good episode. I think it's like the calm before the storm, except we got a lot of storm and before the title card even showed up. That beginning sequence, that could have been the episode on its own. After that, just opening sequence of them just going after the ship, that was exhausting. But it just thoroughly exhausting to watch. It was almost like a football game. Hey, get the fumble, get the ball, and they're just fighting over it. But yeah, good episode. This is a great show. I think if they can close this, and I said this if they can close this is going to be top 3 Marvel properties. Out of the Captain America movies, I've liked this better so far than the other Captain America type movies that have had Falcon and Winter Soldier in it. So yeah, I'm excited to see this end, and a little bittersweet too, because it's such a great show.
It is. I really enjoyed this episode. I don't know if it's quite my favorite episode. I might have enjoyed last week's more, but I really, really enjoyed this because one of the things I thought was really unique about the season opener was that it was a very slowed down episode, and it's kind of getting a look into the lives of these guys. And after 3 episodes of pretty much once we left that hangar in the 2nd episode, it's been nonstop, go for all the characters. And so I like that we kind of, again, Calm Before the Storm is a great analogy because it really is let's take a second, let's take a breather. Let's kind of get a look and insight into what our characters are thinking at this point before we head into what will probably be a packed finale to kind of wrap everything up. So let's go ahead and get into it and kind of start breaking it down. And yeah, let's talk about it. The first 10 minutes of this episode, essentially take out the minute recap and whatever, but the first 10 minutes of the episode was immediately after the end of episode 4. John Walker has just killed one of the Flag Smashers, basically straight up fucking almost murdered him on the steps in front of America. We can only assume it's decapitation. It certainly indicates it. Even more so in this episode, I felt like they used a different angle that almost seemed to indicate it even more than in the previous episode, which is weird. So he kills him. And we pick up with Walker, who's, kind of done what I feel like most people do when they fuck up in a high-intensity situation, which is just get to the side and try and take a breather.
Run like Tom
Cruise. A little bit, honestly, yeah. And we get him inside the warehouse. We get that shot. I remember on After Dark calling out that shot of, in the trailers, we literally only ever saw him at that football game scene. And then in the last trailer before the first episode aired, we got that one extra shot of just him on his knees, head down. And the question was just, what happened there? Did he do something? Did somebody close to him die? Did something else happen that jeopardized the mission, that he now sees himself as a failure? And we realized that kind of all of the 3 kind of happened. Everything happened in one go where, he did make a big mistake. He lost his best friend, and now he has jeopardized the worldview of Captain America. But he doesn't get long to sit on that because, as they say in the episode, it's time to go to work. Sam and Bucky show up. in an attempt, they are attempting to console him and kind of talk him down and let him know, listen, we kind of understand what you're going through, but this is not a path you want to go down.
Sam's
Give
doing
us
his
the
job
shield.
there.
Give us the shield. Back off. Take it slow. And instead, we engage in a fight for the shield that ends with, I believe it's Bucky that makes the final with a mix of Sam's jetpack.
Yeah.
They break Walker's arm.
Oh, brutal, right?
Yeah.
So brutal.
And again, I'm going to make my Nikki has his Star Trek jokes. My reference this series has been the name Derek Kolstad, the man who wrote the John Wick
Walker
films.
franchise. Let's get
the
it.
John Wick films and the film Nobody. And I watched that, and after that happened, I just paused it, did a lap around my living room, and went, "Fuck, that is the most John Wick that this has ever got." That, and, the over the head shot of just the arm bending, and you hear it, it is. It was a brutal shot.
And speaking of brutal, I know they're mechanical, but when he broke Falcon's wings, that was oh my god, man, that was worse than when they broke Red Wing. And Bucky's arm got late. I thought they broke Bucky's arm again, but it was just kind of zapped a little bit. He was fine.
He took a hard hit.
Crazy. Yeah.
But this scene was incredible. The moment I saw the three of them face off, I the first time I watched it, I was by myself, and I just thought to myself, immediately I'm getting Civil War vibes. This is another Cap, Bucky, Tony, where this is going.
And the score of Civil War playing during that scene. I don't know if you noticed that, but I
knew it was familiar, but I couldn't tell where it was from.
It's almost note for note the ending of Civil War, so much too. I was humming along when I was watching it the first time. It's so familiar. I love it when scores are familiar. But Henry Jackman did a great job with this.
And so I loved everything about this scene. I love the execution of the fight. I love the almost mad dash way of executing it, where it really is at times. It's just a scramble for the shield. You can almost see at times Falcon and Bucky in the beginning are almost trying to hold punches. They don't want to hurt this guy.
Yeah.
But they realize the more and more he's going through it, they got to do what they got to do to take him down.
And he goes for the decapitation move 3 more times. He goes to decapitate them both 3 separate times in that sequence. And one of them is just I'm Captain America. It's just oh my God, this guy's it's almost like that scene where Cap's holding Thanos back, but the evil version of that, where he's just it's the I'm Captain Kirk, from the original Star Trek series. Everybody knows what we're talking about there.
Everybody, I definitely know what you're talking about.
That's great. One of the best episodes.
I thought it was a great sequence. Very well choreographed. Something this show has done throughout its entire run. It's not just that the fights are cool concept. They are very well choreographed for hand-to-hand fights a lot of the time. And they do a great job. And I like
Ultimate Frisbee.
We'll get to that in a bit, but I like how we're seeing almost not. One of the things I do like, and I praise this for the last episode as well as this one, is I like that the way they're showing the serum affect him isn't that it's necessarily making him bad or making him good. It's more just enhancing what's in the moment. But I love the little ticks. You can see it's fucking with him in some way.
Anything
that we can't
humanizes
really
him.
I mean,
feel bad for him. He's a victim, but he did it to himself. So it's but at the same time, training from the military, he did what they told him to. And that's another thing about this show, and we can get into it. We have not seen the chain of command with Walker. We don't know who he's taking his orders from. We don't know what his orders are. And it seems like in this episode, he was just following whatever orders were given to him. Kill the terrorists by any means necessary, decapitation away.
Possibly, but they don't really ever get into that. They just know that he is tasked with stopping this flag smasher movement. And so we end the fight. Obviously, the arm snaps. They get the shield. And I one of my favorite shots of the series is at the end where it's Bucky that picks up the shield, but he hands it off to Wilson, and there's that stare. And one of the things that I love about this episode is through the lens of multiple different characters, we get this discussion about what does the holding of the mantle and the honor of the mantle of Captain America really mean. And obviously we know to Bucky, it is much more personal than it is
Yeah.
to maybe anybody else that can be
That look,
associated with it.
don't screw it up this time. But like you could just see it in his face. Like that's what he's saying. He's like, like, here it is. Don't you dare lose this again.
Well, I even took it as like, because the way that he kind of looks at him, I took it as a like, this is your fault. Like all of this, everything we've went through, this is partially on you. Because this guy would never have been in this situation had Bucky or had Sam not handed the shield up.
Yeah. So like this is yours. Keep it.
Right. Yeah. Handing the shield back, this plus everything that now comes with it, and we see him kind of looking at the blood on it, and I think he accepts that in that moment, that part of this does fall on me, you know.
And he wipes it off right away. It hurts him that there's blood on the shield.
Walker would never have been in that situation had Sam not handed the shield away. And so to an extent, part of everything that's happened does fall back onto Sam. Even if it's not all
double. And there's a scene later on, but we do get some reference as to ownership of that shield. I've theorized, and we all know that that's clearly not the shield that the American government owned, because that shield was smashed to bits by Thanos. And I've theorized, many others have theorized, that this is, since they have the rights to the Fox X-Men stuff now, that this is now Captain America's adamantium shield from the comic books, which is more of a combination of vibranium and adamantium. So it clearly is not the United States government's shield. It absolutely is his shield. The opening line of the show, it feels like it belongs to someone else's. It's not like it's yours. That is Sam Wilson's shield.
See, I always took it as they just repaired his shield.
No, I think that's how a lot of people took it too. Like he knew where to get more vibranium. I think it's more. I think it's going to be an adamantium thing, and that is a little bit coming from Fortnite. So asterisk next to that. But Fortnite ended up being canon for Rise of Skywalker, guys, and that was also a Disney property. So they give us the title card, and you can lead us into the next scene.
Yeah, that was also a mess. So we get this. No,
don't. That was a low blow, man. I did not set you up to beat Rise of Skywalker with a baseball bat. That was not cool.
I don't know. Rise of Skywalker hit itself with a baseball bat when it hit theaters. So we move on.
I don't know what he's talking about, guys. Fucking Winter Soldier. We get this. They go back to that that GRC place. Joaquin comes in. I'll let you take because you have it prepared.
Yeah, so we get back. They're back at the GRC headquarters. Joaquin Torres shows up and basically relays to them that, look, the government's taken over. You know, Captain America murdering on screen is kind of not a good look. So we're being overrun. And it kind of is just, look, let's just lay low. Let's just sit off this for a minute. Let's not take some heat. And when something comes up, we'll hop back on it.
But what does happen, he does take the wins.
Yeah, that was what I was going to point out. Was comics, I know
Joaquin becomes the Falcon when Sam Wilson's Captain America.
Yeah, so that was one of the things. See, I didn't know that was a comic connection, but I immediately felt it where, like, from the first episode, and I think I said it on the review, I was like, they're setting this guy up to almost become his Wilson.
Yeah.
And clearly they very clearly do that because they show that he's got enough tech ability because he wants to mess with the wings and repair them. So, you know, we absolutely could see him come back. And I've never seen the actor that I can think of in anything before. Danny Ramirez is his name. I've liked him in the show. I thought he's a cool addition. He just
to be I gotta look up his filmography. He's supposed to be in something coming up.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I don't know anything about him, but I hope he seems like a good actor. I've liked him so far.
Keep talking.
Yeah, so they're told to lay low. Falcon goes back to New Orleans. He decides to go back and help out with his family. He makes a detour, but we'll get to that in a second because first, Bucky goes to Sokovia, or kind of the remains of Sokovia, and finds one Baron Zemo who escaped. And I thought this was now. I thought this was a really great scene. We get kind of that one last conversation between the two of them where Zemo says, you know, he doesn't have the spirit to do it. He is stubborn like his friend before him. You are a trained killer. You have to do this. And we get that moment where he sticks the gun in his face. And for a second, I bought it. I was like, they're not going to kill him off after all this. But then we get But then we get the shot, which I did remember from the trailers, where it's Zemo's face and the bullets dropping. And it's like, no, he's showing him that in many ways I have broken my habits of the past. Just because I can snap into it when I need to, it's now under my control. I'm not under its control. And so AO and the door
showed him like it was like, and I said this earlier, like Zemo kind of has this disdain for super soldiers, but he has like this respect for Bucky because he's just a victim, like much like his family, like this was thrown on him. He has a respect for Sam because Sam's doing all of this without the super soldier serum. He said he wouldn't take it if he had the chance. So in his eyes, like he might be clearly that power.
He clearly does have a respect for Captain America as well, as they previously discussed in that. And again, and I think it was a really great, like, punchy line, but it's a way to just quickly establish. No, he does respect some of these people, where it's like when they're talking about this, when they're talking about the serum, and it's like, well, what about Steve? How many other Steves have there been? None.
Because Zemo's whole plan was that Zemo was like, I'm tearing up the Avengers so that they can never come back together. But Steve brought them back together. He brought them back together, and he proved them wrong. So he was right. He was wrong about Steve, but for the most part, it seems like he was right about like the super soldier stuff, because like not many good people have gotten that serum.
And so so we get that final scene. Ao and the Dora Milaje take him away to the raft, which I thought was a nice little throwback, putting him in there.
Why wasn't he there in the first place? Why wasn't he in the raft in the first place? That's what confuses me.
I don't know, man. So we get that, and again, I really liked that scene. I thought it was a very good scene. Again, I like that going forward, Zemo isn't a supervillain, and I really hated the idea. Not hated, but I was just very weary of the idea coming into this of like, really, Zemo's going to be kind of the villain bad guy of this? Like, because he wasn't really ever a villain, and I like the idea that no, he's not. He's just a guy with morals, and
he's not suicidal anymore.
Last time they were on the opposite side of his morals to some extent. Now they align with each other, and he's a real asset, and he is a good dude. He's not. And a dancer. And a great
dancer.
So we move on from that, and we get back to Falcon, who actually, before we even get there, let's go ahead and get to the scene that happened first.
Let's go Veep.
So John Walker, broken arm and shieldless, is brought back to the U.S., and we see him in what is a very public, I don't know if that's a hearing, what the fuck
Inquisition.
But basically, the U.S., the liaison for the U.S. government there, whoever that senator is, because he's not someone we've ever seen before. I can't even tell you his name.
He's the guy that took the shield before, but he
he's been in the show.
Smithsonian. He's not really. Most of his lines in this episode have been dubbed over because of that virus subplot that was there. If you look at like the GRC headquarters later, you can see that like his lines were clearly dubbed over, so it seems like a lot of his character was thrown out. But yeah, I think what we can call this is an informal hearing, because it wasn't an official court-martial, is what they said. But they're like, right. you're not in any capacity. The guy, they just toss him aside like they do with a lot of like mentally unstable veterans in America. Like that's right. One of those. That's the part that I really like made me sympathize was that he just they just tossed him aside. Like it's like they told him to do this, and then they threw him away like he was nothing. And no pension, no benefits, no retirement.
Yeah. No, thank you.
No way to take care of himself.
So I was talking to my brother about this, and the way that I phrased it to him was, I was like, all right, look at it this way. I said, think about this. I said, because when he started getting mad, because I saw it the second time with my brother, and my brother goes like, he's kind of like, huh? And I'm like, what? And he's like, it seems like this is escalating. He's like, is that the serum? And I was like, well, I mean, you could put a part of it on the serum maybe, but I was like, think about this. I was like, he put himself into the military, right? He is clearly dedicated himself to the military's ways and practices and training. We learned in the 4th episode that him and Lamar on the missions that led them to the declaration, to get to where they got, they did things that they're not proud of and that they very clearly regret.
And which we see in this episode. Like the whole entire thing of him killing that guy was because he wanted to give Lamar's family closure. Like that was a big part of it. Lamar's family, they don't need to know the truth. They just need, do they deserve to know the truth? Yes. Is that going to help them at all? No. And John Walker, good soldier, bad Captain America.
And so we get and so I was like, so this guy's dedicated himself to the military. He's dedicated himself to the training, their ways. I think the word they use is protocols in this. And so he's talking about
served him.
Right. And so he's talking about how, and I'm explaining this to my brother, and I'm like, so imagine you do all that. You are decorated, awarded, you are honored for the things that you did that disgrace yourself internally. But your one silver lining is you have done all of this to be the man who is selected to become the next Captain America. You are following in the footsteps of one of the most honorable soldiers in America. And you, just like at one point Captain America did, you believing that you doing everything your country asks you to do is the best possible thing. And the problem is he is entering a role where he has an insurmountable amount of pressure on him. He is immediately chucked into an incredibly large task in finding what is essentially a terrorist cell.
He wasn't ready for that serum.
Well, I'll get to that in a second. That's a whole nother level of this. But in terms of the government aspect of it, he gets chucked into this incredibly difficult assignment with very little experience as Captain America. The two people who were closest to the original Captain America in many ways reject him and the fact that he's even there. And so it's this consistent piece of mounting pressure for a mission that seems unfinishable, all for it to culminate with the death of his best friend. And in that moment, it doesn't matter what you do, right? You're doing what any other human would do, which is reactionary.
And that's what Val says in like the next scene when we see CV is, hey, none of us is mad at you for what you did. It's just we need to like save face, which I'm shocked that they threw him under the bus like that. I really thought there was going to be some sort of like justification.
No, because that's very realistic of how that goes. It very much is, oh shit, our Captain America murdered, wipe our hands with him, let's try again later.
And it also plays too, they'll cover things up when it suits them, but as soon as it doesn't, they'll throw their pawns under the bus.
Right. And so we get that scene, and again, the ending to all this is he is stripped of all his honors. He is stripped of everything that he is owed. So all the severance, all the kind of, the benefits that he should receive.
PTSD counseling.
And so essentially I said to my brother, I was like, what we have now is a man who has dedicated his entire adult life and existence to this organization to be the best he can be in what he feels they want him to be, only to mess up one time in a moment of pure rage and anger that he's probably never experienced. On top of having taken the serum, I said, and not only do you lose your position as Captain America, which clearly means so much to you, you lose everything you've worked for. And so all you're left with is the horrific memories you associate with what you did. You don't even have the 3 purple hearts to make up for it. You have nothing. And so I get
Captain America is what he says. That's like his, like, you can take all that rest of that stuff away from me, but I am Captain America. Like, you're going to either have to kill him or put him in the raft to get him to stop being Captain America.
Potentially, yeah. And so we move on, and obviously we get to the next scene, which you aforementioned. We get, again, the internet doing its best to absolutely hype up things that shouldn't be hyped up, but we get our final main cast member.
I like this.
Well, I mean the internet approach to it. I don't mean the fact.
No, I'm the internet though. I was hyping up the Thunderbolt Ross, the T'Challa, and it just ended up being Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I'm okay with that because I wasn't expecting it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you can be in a Marvel thing if you want. That's cool.
Well, her name's not a boner joke, so people took this a bit better. But we had Julia Louis-Dreyfus show up as and again, I'll say the full name, Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, or Val, as she says. And again, we don't really learn much about this. We don't learn much about this character. She's only in the one scene, but she's essentially enters in to comfort him in that moment. You know, basically says, "Listen, I think most of us would have done in your shoes what you did, but you're the one who did it, so you're the one that's getting swept under." And she says, you know, and she's very suave and very convincing, and it's the best decision you will ever make, aside from marrying this beautiful firecracker right here, is to pick up the phone when I call you. Yeah. And that's clearly, I mean, that is all set up. It's, whether it's, I imagine something that'll pay off in the final episode.
That's why I don't think he's going to die. It's because
we'll get to that. Yeah,
but the way I look at this Val character, and like it kind of invokes it with the high heels right away. Like the first thing you see of her is her high heels, and that's something they would do on like the Arrowverse shows whenever Amanda Waller showed up. And I think I've been saying this. A lot of people have been saying this. The Thunderbolt Ross connections. There's a squad of like fake Avengers in the comic books known as the Thunderbolts. And I always have been saying, like the last couple weeks, is that I don't think they're going to do like a Thunderbolts replacement Avengers type thing, like publicly in the MCU. But I think what you could see is a Suicide Squad type thing, but for the MCU, and have them label it the Thunderbolts. And that this Julia Louis-Dreyfus Val character, who will be appearing in Black Widow, who
is reported and rumored to be appearing in Black Widow. Marvel have not confirmed.
Has not confirmed. Okay. But they
gotta get it out there.
That sort of thing that she'll be recruiting people. And that's why it's okay for us to see this out of order, because if she does show up in Black Widow, I can imagine she might be recruiting somebody else who throws a shield, maybe a Taskmaster, and then they just get a bunch of shield throwing boys that just throw shields at the Avengers. It's like, that's just what they're going to do. They're going to throw shields, save the world. But
well, listen, if you want to get into Taskmaster theories, I don't even believe that's a boy, but that's a totally different.
You know what? We don't care about that anymore, because that was like a year and a half ago that we started speculating on that. Devin keeps saying that it's just going to be Tony Masters, which is like the name in the comic books. That's just such a terrible name. Tony Masters. His name is Taskmaster. Tony. Come on, guys. Wait, that can't fit in the MCU. They'll change it.
I'm still, and we'll move on to. I'm still convinced it's Rachel Weisz.
Okay, well, if it is, she can throw that shield very nicely.
Because, and the reason I pieced that together is because she is only in the trailer in the shots where the action scenes aren't happening. It's very convenient that one of their team members disappears during the action scene.
It's Erin Kellyman again, because we all thought that Emphas Nest was a man, and then she took her helmet off, and it was Erin Kellyman. So.
Right.
It's just Flag Smasher again.
Yeah. So, well,
smashing that flag.
We'll move forward. So let's get back to. So we get that, and then we kind of get to the third segmented piece with these characters, which is Wilson, who decides to go visit Isaiah Bradley, Carl Lumley returning once again.
How'd they make him look so big?
Huh?
How'd they make him look so big? Like, he looks big. I don't think he got that built, because he's a skinny guy.
CG,
you know what? I bet it's that technology that they used in Captain America: The First Avenger, where they put Steve Rogers' face on the little person.
Yeah, potentially.
Like before, which still looks good somehow.
So he visits Isaiah Bradley, and we get this very great. It's a great discussion, and I think it's incredibly well written scene where essentially Bradley kind of in depth explains his history with the Captain America shield and exactly what happened to him that led to his kind of stance on it. And the point that we reach at the end of the conversation to kind of get to the gist of it is he stands firm in his belief that a black man cannot be Captain America, or any right-minded black man who has the chance would not take up the shield. And that is based on his experiences with the U.S. government and how they treated him for potentially being a black Captain America as the one person in his round of experiments who the serum properly worked on.
Yeah.
I love this scene, and
Oh,
I
I just
do
Carl was great.
I love I love that we can kind of see the easy parallel, and this scene ties into another scene later in the episode. So I'll jump ahead a bit, but when Bucky and Sam are talking, and Bucky has the line where he says, you know, when Steve came to me and told me his plan, I don't think either of us really realized what it meant to be handing the Captain America shield to a black man.
Which
And
I think is interesting, which tells us that he knew that when Steve was going back in time to do all that stuff, he had known before that point that he was going to give the shield to Sam, that he was going to come back as an old man, because you see in that scene where Bucky's just he kind of just nods, pats Sam on the back. It's yours.
There's very clearly a scene that we don't see where they have their own proper goodbye.
And I like that.
Yeah, and I always, it's one of those things where, like, I think most people assumed he knew what was going to happen, but they never said it, so they do say it.
I thought it was more just like a sensing thing, but here it's clearly premeditated.
Yeah, like they planned this, and I like that admittance of, like, listen, you know, and one of the things that I do like about this show is it's very interesting because not only is it in terms of a character, is it a buildup of all its own characters, but it's kind of a deconstruction on Steve Rogers himself, right? The idea that, like, even Rogers, because he was in the ice for 70 years, doesn't even really completely understand what the Captain America mantle could mean to other people. And so to him, he was doing the just and right thing and handing the shield off to a man that he thought was fit to take the job without understanding the social ramifications of what he was doing, because he was always such an idealist.
And Carl Umley even says, like, the blonde hair, blue eyed, like that. That's such like a Hitler Youth thing. Back where he was fighting, like the thing that he was essentially the thing that he was fighting, like Captain America was the Nazis' view of Aryan perfection, like the Superman, the superior man. That's what they wanted, was a Steve Rogers. And I think there's a huge, like, racial undertone there, obviously, but it also plays into the fact where what they're doing to Johnny Walker is that he's just he's serving his country. He did his job, and they're just throwing him away. Like, you did your job.
Very similar.
Goodbye, you're going to jail. There's a lot of parallels here. There's a lot of gray area and a lot of frisbees.
Yeah, and so I like with that conversation between the two, how it does, and I like what this episode does, where it does really leave it up until interpretation, especially in which it almost is funny because it does have to be stated. Most of this show was shot well before 2020, so it is kind of funny how poignant it is airing now, and this was all premeditated before.
And there was a pandemic storyline that they had to erase from it.
Yeah, and it was premeditated before this all came to light, you know, and really became the public dominance of how people are feeling.
It's like they saw the pandemic storyline, and they were like, we have all these racial undertones, we have, like, the racial tension, we have the civil unrest, and then we have a pandemic storyline. It's like the Disney higher-ups told them, you can have one of them. You can't have both of those. We're too scared. Like, we're too scared. That's too hot. We can't touch that. So having both of them would just be too much. It's on fire. But having, like, the racial undertones, the civil unrest, that's a more important message.
It is. And so I thought that they did a really great job with this scene and that discussion of, like, and I like how Sam is at times very Steve Rogerish in that he wants to be the idealist, but he's also the realist in that he sees how the world works for what it is. And it's that internal struggle of, you know, can I do this? Because
and that's what makes it worthy to pick up the hammer. Like, the whole entire point that he questions his worthiness. He questions whether or not he is worthy of the shield, worthy of being Captain America. That's why he gets to lift the hammer. Because, like, he's not imposing his will onto others. He's questioning his will as if it may or may not be the best for other people. But he's like putting his faith in individuals, like he says in Civil War. Like, he has his code. He wishes he can look the other way. And then Tony says, no, you don't. No, he doesn't. Because that's what makes him, is questioning everything.
Right. And so we are starting to see a little bit of that in Falcon. So we'll go ahead and move on. So we get back to New Orleans, which is where the bulk of the episode is spent. He's back with his family, and this is where the episode kind of takes a layoff a little bit. We get a little bit of a rest, and yeah, I thought it was really well done.
Not
But
much to talk about, but it's nice. Like, you get to see good moments with Sam and Bucky. You get to see one thing I really liked, and I don't think anybody realized this. I realized it as soon as like Bucky smiles at Sam's sister. Her name's Sarah. Steve's mother's name was Sarah. That's the first thing that Bucky says to Steve after he comes out of like the Winter Soldiers program. He's like, "How do I know I'm talking to the real Bucky?" He says, "Your mom's name was Sarah. You used to wear newspapers in your shoes." So when she says her name's Sarah, he kind of gives this smile thinking about Steve's mom. So I just think that was a funny, subtle thing that's in that moment that's just very clearly written.
See, I didn't even think that deep. I'm just thinking Bucky thinks she's cute. But Bucky's trying to hit.
Bucky does definitely think she's cute. But I think it's also that Bucky had a thing for Steve's mom as well.
Okay, that's a whole other conversation.
There. Steve's mom has got it going on.
So we get a bit of time in New Orleans. We see them put the boat back together. We see
the ship of Theseus. They should have called the Vision. That's what I was thinking during that scene. They should have called the Vision and just have him replace every part in that boat. If it is still the ship of Theseus, if we replace what's the name of the boat? It's like the Nora and whatever his parents' name was.
Yeah.
Something in Darlene, right?
I can look it up.
Yeah, something like that. But it's like, but when I saw that, I'm like, what if Vision just showed up and started replacing it? It's like, what are you doing to my boat? I'm replacing the ship of Theseus. The ship of Theseus has two parts. Which one is the ship of Theseus? So that was just funny that Falcon's fixing a boat and Vision had that whole thing about the ship of Theseus. Continue. What was it? Frank and Darlene?
That sounds right. I'm trying to find an image. Yeah.
I'll find it. You talk.
Okay. So, yeah. So, Jesus, what was I saying? So, yeah.
Find
so we get this time in New Orleans. And one of the things I like is, in a lot of ways, this episode was half of a conclusion because we get a lot of emotional catharsis between characters. We get resolution between Bucky and Zemo. We get resolution between
Paul and
Sam
Darlene.
and his. What is it?
Paul and Darlene was the name of the boat.
Paul and Darlene. No, you're good. So we get resolution between Sam and his sister with that conversation where she says, at no point did I ever think you were running from anything. There's a fight back here. There's a fight out there, and you've taken both on. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was a great line. And we see finally a coming together of him and Bucky where they have that conversation where they're chucking the shield around.
They drink Heineken, which is a
they did drink. They did drink Heineken. I had to pause for a second because it looked like it was the non-alcoholic version of Heineken. Which
duels. Duels. Yeah. No, I saw it and I'm like, oh, look, Heineken product placement. And my father was like, oh, is that Heineken? Are you sure? And then they showed it again. No, it's Heineken. That's shit beer. That's what he said. But yeah, no, it's product placement and it pays for those great wingsuit suits. One thing I do want to say was there was a line in the Carl Lumley sequence was that pledge allegiance to that. Well, he was like the stars and stripes. Pledge allegiance to that. That I really thought that was an empowering line because it was like it always it's a George Lucas mentality in me with a Star Wars thing where he always would say, especially during the prequels, question the constructs that you put your faith into, like the governments, the hierarchies, because they're constructs run by people with agendas, and agendas change. But again, the things that Steve was saying. So this guy doesn't know it, but he agrees with Steve Rogers. Like a lot of the things that Carl Lumley was saying with Steve Rogers. But the ultimate frisbee scene, like they're throwing that shield against the tree. Did you see that scene and then just not want to go up, buy one of those shields, and then just go out in the backyard and toss it around with one of your friends? That's what I would have. We got to get one of those and just toss it around. He's like, you'd probably just toss it, land the bounce, and then break your hands when you try to catch it.
So, so we get that emotional scene between them where, they really get in and talk about their problems. Bucky addresses, the fact that unfortunately, there is a bit of a a race line to
Mhm.
overcome with Captain America, but it's the
Mhm.
concept of what have you been fighting for all this
Yeah.
time if not to fight for this? You know what I mean?
And
You
Sam,
stood and Sam speaks to Bucky on,
yeah,
really going back and
yeah,
don't just, you know, don't
do
fix,
the work,
resolve.
is what he said.
Huh?
But like, do the work is what he said. He said, don't do
Yeah,
things to make yourself feel better. Do things to make
to
amends,
make them
making the
feel
people,
better.
Mr. Nakajima,
Right.
at the end of the
Immediately
camp.
I was like,
Yeah.
so the final scene with Bucky will be back there. I
Mhm.
bet you that's where they're
And
gonna
that's one of
go.
those things where Sam really, you go back to the scenes with that therapist that he had, which I mean, she was doing as best a job as she could, a little bit passive aggressive, as Bucky said. Sam is the type of therapist that Bucky always needed.
Right.
He
Someone
needed
who could be
someone
real.
that could understand that he could be real with. Yeah. And like, he couldn't be real with this government appointed lackey, for a better term, that was just there to work for the president or Thunderbolt Ross or Veep or whoever it was, um, to do these things for. But with Sam, he knows that Sam has no ulterior motive. He knows that Sam's just trying to help him. This is his partner. He even admits it in this episode.
Yeah.
Um, and like that, they're gonna be like there for each other, and I really like that, because like it felt like just two guys tossing a baseball around. Like it
Yeah.
felt like two guys throwing a ball and not two guys playing with this mythological shield that means so much in both the real world and the MCU.
So we move on from there. We're gonna get into now, kind of, as we start to move a little bit towards the wrap up of the episode. What were honestly my two weak points of the episode? One is a legitimate weak point, and one is a nitpick, but it's kind of funny, so I'll bring it up. We get a Rocky-esque training montage with Sam,
Don't
kind
you
of.
dare.
Okay,
It
so
was
here's my
Rocky, it was
criticism.
Rocky 3-esque.
Here's my criticism of it. The scene before, he's throwing around the shield and catching it with next to no issue, but then
But he's not throwing it
immediately
hard.
we start the montage and he has
Yeah.
to work to get to that level again. And it's
Yeah.
like, maybe if we'd had the montage before and then
Before,
he's just
yeah.
casually throwing it around with Buck, it would have made more sense.
But they
Nitpicks. It's cool scene.
yeah, that's a nitpick, because when he's throwing it around with Buck, he is throwing it very softly, and they're more just like, it's like, again, the baseball comparison. When you're warming up, like when a pitcher's warming up, he's not throwing 99 miles an hour right off the bat. He's warming up, he's stretching out, he's getting used to it. When Sam is doing the Rocky training sequence, and I will say this is a Rocky 3 training sequence, because we get the framing of him running towards the camera. It's like it's more like he's auditioning to be the next Apollo Creed rather than the next Captain America. Which, if you want to do like an Apollo Creed prequel type thing, Anthony Mackie, damn, do that. But he knows parkour now. He's doing all kinds of flips and shit, and he gets better at it by the time like he finishes.
I said to my brother,
and the score.
I said to my brother, I was like, by in the next episode, I bet you if he uses the shield in the fight sequence, they will show that exact flip, because he worked on that exact flip.
Oh yeah,
more than one. Like, that's coming back.
Yeah, and he's going to have the wings. Like that's what Bucky did. We kind of skipped over that with the AO. He gets this mysterious case.
I was
from
gonna
AO.
get to it at the end.
Yeah, it's the Captain America suit, and it does have the wings on it. Don't be worried, guys. He's still gonna flippity flap his wings. Because like it's just those wings are gonna be made out of vibranium now too, apparently, because Wakanda forever, guys. So to
keep it moving.
What was the other one?
Well, I was gonna say, to keep it moving, as we kind of, I skipped this scene on purpose because it kind of ties into the end of the episode, so we'll get there. In my opinion, this specific scene is the worst scene in the episode, and honestly, it's one of the worst scenes in a few episodes. In the middle of all this stuff in New Orleans, we randomly cut away. We randomly cut away twice. The first one is awful. We cut away to Emily Van Camp in
Madripoor. Again, you can't remember that damn name.
Madripoor. They were only there once.
Reshoot thing where they've like this is entirely a reconstruction with ADR.
So they go to Madripoor, and there's this phone scene in which Emily Van
Yeah,
Camp's
an
Darren
Algerian guy
Carter
talking to her.
is talking to Batroc the Leaper, who
Yeah,
returns, George St. Pierre, and
you
they're
really
having
need
this
to know that it's him.
conversation.
Like it's
Huh?
not hammer over the head. Like, ooh, she's talking to Batroc the Leaper. They don't show his face on the other side of the phone, so it can be like a reveal. It's a very like cheap reveal that's almost like it's too big to be a hint, but it's not enough to be a reveal. Because like when I was
Yeah.
watching my dad, he's like, "Who?" It's like Batroc, the Leaper, the guy that Captain America. Oh yeah, that guy. Because like unless you know his voice and you've watched Winter Soldier over and over again, you're not going to be able to tell that that's him. So there better be something else there. And then he goes to the Flag Smashers too.
Yeah, so we get this scene, and it just the whole thing, and maybe it is ADR, but the whole thing is constructed awfully,
Yeah.
where it's her on the phone, and she's speaking English. He's clearly speaking French, which is like if you can both speak the same language, just communicate in one language. This is one of the
like, why
dumbest
does
ways.
Patrick Stewart have a British accent in Star Trek? He's a French guy. What the hell?
If he's better at French and she can understand French fluently, just have her speak French. Like, it doesn't make any
Universal
sense.
translators. It's like when the Klingons say kapla, it doesn't translate it.
And so we get this conversation, and yeah, it's like, so I don't think this is as obvious as people might think it is, but there's a line in there where she reveals through this conversation that she has orchestrated Batroc's exit from the Algerian prison he was put in when he was
from Winter Soldier.
When he was arrested during the first episode. No, he wasn't arrested.
That was the first episode. No, I thought that was back when Fury got it, because originally Fury hired him to hijack the SHIELD ship, which ended up being a Hydra ship. And then he was in SHIELD custody. That I got from that was that she broke him out of SHIELD custody, and then with the stuff with the helicopter, he just jumped out. Like he just jumped out and parachuted to like Libya or wherever.
Oh, see, I was under the impression, and the way that I took it because when SHIELD went down, she would have had no SHIELD contacts any longer, and she specifically says she got him out for a purpose.
And she said the Algerian prison.
My understanding was that, because remember that first episode when Falcon's in the air with him, Torres is with a squad of soldiers on the ground keeping up with them. So my understanding was that he was taken into custody and that she had him released from custody currently.
See, I could be wrong. Maybe we'll figure out more of this, but I thought that because she said Algerian prison, that's where he was in Winter Soldier. When we leave him in Winter Soldier, he's in an Algerian prison. And if you look at a map, those two places are not near each other. Like France is not near Libya. He wouldn't go to an Algerian prison if they caught him on the ground in Libya. He would have been in United States custody. Anyway, I digress. That's just one thing.
To be fair though, they've shown more than once in the MCU that international lines can be crossed really weirdly. The Wakandans arrested Zemo twice, and he's ended up in both a German prison and then the Raft, which is an American-owned prison. So,
and I think that's writing on who's on which thing, because they were going to extradite Bucky back to Wakanda, as Tony says in Civil War. But for some reason, they don't do the same thing with Zemo. But that could be because he's a parent.
We'll find out. But there's some weird inconsistencies in the writing. Maybe probably won't. But so the way that I took it and interpreted, and if you guys have an interpretation, put it in the comments. I'm very curious. But yeah, the way that I took it was that he was in custody at the end of the first episode. I just assumed, like when she said Algerian prison, like from what I know about nationalities, French people that look like George St. Pierre often have Algerian ancestry. So I just assumed he was Algerian of some kind and had crimes there, and that's where he got turned over to.
Yeah.
So to me, it didn't stand out as weird, but I was just like, okay, so she's got him out of prison since the first episode. And again, because he specifically states, I'm out to work for you to get revenge on Falcon, which he wouldn't have needed if that first episode hadn't happened first.
They say that he screwed him over on a lot of money. I think it
Right,
was
what they were doing. What they were doing in the first
Have you
episode.
ever played Fortnite though? That's
No.
one that I do want to bring up. He had one of those wingsuits. Fortnite, you get a lot of those wingsuits paragliding. They were right on the border. They were right on that border, and the United States was not allowed to operate over the border. So
Right.
that's just one thing. But we're spending too much time on this one thing. We'll find out
Yeah,
where George St. Pierre is next week. Where in the world is George St. Pierre?
So the point in being is this scene. The fact of the matter is this scene is so poorly executed that we have two totally different interpretations of what that could be. So the point in being, she gets him out. She sends him to work with the Flag Smashers because he wants revenge on Falcon, and the assumption is that Falcon will be drawn to wherever it goes. Most people that I've talked to and seen have taken this as, oh, that she's a bad guy. They definitely just revealed she's the bad guy.
Yeah. No.
Here's the thing, though. He was working
for Fury the first time.
Well, I don't know if it's Fury, but here's the thing, though. If she is the power broker, or if she's working for the power broker, the power broker is chasing the Flag Smashers.
Yes.
And she has just sent an acquaintance out to meet with the Flag Smashers that is hired on her behalf. Meaning if the power broker is hiring someone to go work with the Flag Smashers, there's another angle here.
Yes.
I don't think it's, and again, this whole power broker, Sharon Carter potential angle, it could be villainy or it could be something totally different that we're not expecting. And again, I like that there's that.
Yeah.
I like that there's that vagueness to it. This isn't as black and white. I don't think Marvel would sloppily just reveal who their villain is like that. They're a little more cunning than that.
Especially not on this show, because this show has never been that way. Like, there's been properties where they like they're like, hey, this is clearly the villain. But like you look at Thor: The Dark World, the Dark Elves are clearly the villain of that movie. Yeah. You look at a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy, Ronan the Accuser, that's the villain of that movie. Yep. Endgame, Thanos, that's the villain of that movie. But with this, they don't want you to pick a villain and be like, that's the villain of this series. The villain of this series, it's more about the struggle, more about the journey than it is about the villain. It feels like, and it's one of those things where I do think that they want the characters to revert to their starting points. But like I said before, like Wanda, okay, she's more powerful than she was before. Falcon, we end the last movie, Steve hands off the shields. Falcon's Captain America now. Falcon's going to be Captain America with the shield at the end of this show. So that if you didn't see this show, if you don't have Disney Plus, you can still watch the next MCU movie, and it's as if nothing happened. So I don't think it will be anything big like making Emily Van Camp the villain. And like I said, George St. Pierre, Batroc the Leaper, he was working for Fury to begin with. So this could just be Agent Carter as an extension of Fury once again.
Potentially. I mean, I'm of the opinion that they're approaching these series very realistically, and to Feige they are very important. I don't think these are being built to not have new information revealed. I think what that statement when they made that means is like you can get the general concept, but like we know that the post-credit scene is directly from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yes. But in that scene, Wanda is past more powerful. Yeah. She's doing things that have never been established that are as hers in the film. And her child screams out to her, which has not been established in the film. So I don't think it's a case of like the films aren't going to be afraid to touch the series or anything, or the series will have to have an A point end and an A point beginning. But it's a point of like, I think it'll be stuff that can be explained away very quickly. So, like,
here's what I want to ask you, and this is like the final like review show that we're doing before this. Who is the Flag Smasher? Like just rampant speculation. Your guess. Like we have options: Sharon Carter, Val, Thunderbolt.
Who is the villain?
Not the Flag Smasher, the Power Broker. That's what I meant. Not who is the Flag Smasher. Who is the Power Broker?
My guess is it's one of three. I don't think it's Thunderbolt Ross. Okay. I don't think he's showing up. Simply because this is why I don't think he's showing up. It's pure and simple logic. from episode 1, we have had so many slots for main character names, all of which have been filled now. I don't think there's a world in which William Hurt shows up to do your show and doesn't get credit billing. You know, he's not Josh Hayward or Josh Stanford and Clay Bennett. He's
Sam
not.
Jackson is uncredited for most of the Marvel movies that he's in.
No, he's not.
Like the Phase One Marvel movies. So for Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America: The First Avenger, he is uncredited.
He's not in Thor, is he?
He is in Thor. He's in the post-credit scene of Thor.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Okay,
so it'll be
that's
like a post-credit one-off thing. So that's just like a technicality thing, like the Scarlet Witch thing. But no.
Okay,
who are your 3 candidates?
I don't have 3 candidates. To me, I think the power broker is either, if it's not Sharon Carter, then it may be this new character they've introduced. It could be her, because I think it is. Because here's my thing. I think, and again, I'm not the one who came up with this. One of my friends mentioned this, and I thought it was a good point. In the scene where he's talking to Lamar's parents, which I only didn't bring up because we'd already talked about it a little bit beforehand, which is a great scene. But in the scene where he's talking to the parents, when he's talking about that moment and he's hugging her, he is like dead staring ahead. And you can see in his eyes that like he knows what he's not saying is the truth, but it's what they need to hear in the moment. And so I think
that got him the medals that he doesn't approve of.
Right. And so we know, based on what Val has said, that somehow she has information to know more than she somehow should. She knows he took the serum. She knows that, she basically, and I'm sure she knows that the guy he killed wasn't the person that killed Lamar. And so,
should we get the post credit out of the way just to?
I'll get there in a sec. It's really not that big, but we'll get there in a sec. So we get this moment where, my friend took it as he thinks that he will want to go to New York once he knows that she's there to kill her. He doesn't think that the beef anymore is with Falcon or Winter Soldier. It's about her and getting her and finishing the mission.
The hell out of my way.
And so what he said to me is, and this feeds into my theory, I think this Val character could absolutely be the power broker or be a piece of the power broker idea, because if Van Camp has something to do with the power broker, and they're sending Batroc in when the power broker's after the Flag Smashers, and now Val is enticing Walker to go to New York when the Flag Smashers are there, and they already know that Falcon will head there.
A lot of Soldier.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's a reason she's introduced now, and it's because she has a role to play in this final episode. But if it's not her and it's not the more obvious Sharon Carter, I mean, for the shits and giggles, outside chance, Zemo. Maybe he played them all.
Zemo.
He's got money. But other than that, then
what it stands for.
But other than that, realistically, I don't. If it's not one of those two, or fuck it for 3, maybe Zemo, then I don't think it's anyone important enough that we'll need to be introduced to them. I think it's just a concept that worked for the show. I
think the power broker is actually a facade, that there is no power broker. That it's kind of like the Mandarin type thing. And it's not as egregious this time because power broker isn't like an A-list villain in the comic books like the Mandarin. And I think that's something that they created, like the power broker is watching, that like doesn't actually exist. And that the closest thing that we have is Val working for Thunderbolt Ross. Because I do think there is a connection there.
So hung up on Thunderbolt Ross.
See, here's the thing. Even if they don't reveal that she's connected to Thunderbolt Ross in this show, they will in Black Widow.
If she's in it.
Isn't Black Widow, she will be connected to Thunderbolt Ross in Black Widow. So If there is an actual power broker, like if there's someone we can assign the name, it's Thunderbolt Ross or Val.
I can't wait for July so we have an answer on this Thunderbolt Ross.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong about this thing. Because I love being surprised. But I just think that it's one of those things that there is no power broker, and this is kind of a monster under the bed type thing where people are gone for 5 years. People come back. Oh, you haven't heard of the power broker? But the power broker does everything. The power broker rules everything here, where it's just he's been able to take advantage of a place like Madripoor where there's all this chaos, nonconformity, no like records or paper trail there for people to gather, and they can just be like this entity thing. Because I don't think that Thunderbolt Ross or Val would hang out in Madripoor, but they would have dealings in there through someone like a Sharon Carter, and that maybe Batroc is there to spy on them. But Sam like they're in New York. Sam finds this out. He opens the case. He looks at the suit in true superhero fashion. Why don't you pitch us the post-credit scene?
Yes. So we get the setups for the next episode, as you just said. The Flag Smashers are in New York. There's a panel happening to discuss what they're calling the Patch Act, which is essentially mass deportation, sending all refugees who are displaced to other countries back to their native country, but not really seemingly a discussion about aiding them. Even if it is old ADR, I do think there's one great line in there that was said by that government American character where the Indian woman is talking about, but what about the optics? What about the optics? And he goes, the optics are what we want to show them. It's like the people will believe what we tell them. So the optics, the situation at hand is whatever we want to tell them it is.
That's why I thought that they were going to get John Walker off, because like it's just like whatever you say, they'll believe. But like you could have said, this person, he was a super soldier who was about to kill all these innocent people, and he had to kill him, and the only way to do it was to use the shield and decapitate. But like one of those things, I do say the ADR, that's not a nitpick for me, because I think it's amazing that they've cut out like this big part of the show and like reshot it. Because when the lady, I don't know if it's the delegation from India, is speaking, they at first show her on a screen, which is a blue screen that they then put on there. I would argue that person was never originally in principal photography, and that's something that they were able to add through pickups because they had these monitors around them, and the nature of the scene is that some people are doing it remotely as is. So they were able to do some clever things in this scene to build a narrative that didn't involve like that vaccine subplot that was there. That some people are talking about. I don't think it matters. I think it's a great show.
Which, to be fair, is that confirmed true or is that a rumor? Because I'd actually never heard of it before you mentioned it.
So it's a rumor, but it's all but confirmed because there's some very obvious ADR over and like that Donya Madani character. She was supposed to have a much larger role, where she's like a character and then she gets sick and like we see her die. Like we see her get worse and then die because of a pandemic plot line. Originally, it was rumored to be some sort of like Terrigen epidemic. I don't think that's at all what it was. I think it was more just straight out half of the people are gone, not up to their up on their vaccinations, and then half of those people come back. You'd get a lot of like viruses spreading around because those people don't like they're 5 years behind on their immunization. As far as that's just speculation. What I really like about the like the post-credit scene with John Walker is that if this were to be the first thing that came out after Endgame, at the post-credit scene in Endgame, there's no post-credit scene, but you hear Iron Man hammering. And then that post-credit scene in this, he's hammering. Like, that's the first thing. So you could say, oh, that hammering at the end of Endgame was John Walker building the fake Captain America shield, which I think is the awesomest thing that he has done. Because it's just like, no, I might not have the vibranium shield, but they're not going to take the Captain America mantle away from me. I'm going to build this new shield that's probably out of stainless steel or something. And then I'm going to sharpen the edge of it so that when I throw it, it decapitates them even faster than before. He's doubled down. I love it. I love it. And they released a trailer 2 days ago, which you can see in that trailer, the like finished shield. And I didn't pause it the other day. And I should have. I would have been able to see it, but it's clearly a different shield in that trailer. Because they show him with the shield, but it's a different shield. I think what they did is they just used the same shield, like the prop, and then just CGI'd over it to make it look a little bit cracked. But there's cracks in the shield, just like there's like cracks. It's like Kylo Ren. Like I can see through the cracks in your mask, but like there's cracks in the Captain America facade. You're not what you say you are.
Possibly. So before we go ahead and wrap up, any final thoughts, and then any brief, do you have any specific predictions, like you feel 100% this will be true?
I think we're gonna get something in the raft. Like they mentioned the raft in this episode. I do think there's gonna be some sort. We got 2 post-credit scenes for WandaVision. I think this one will carry on that tradition where there will be 2 post-credit scenes. I think one of them will be in the raft where they are taking Zemo. If Carly lives, that's where she'll be heading, is the raft. If John Walker lives, I think he'll end up going to the raft too. So we may get some sort of Thunderbolt set up in the raft, maybe a Thunderbolt Ross, maybe not. Maybe they'll save that for the Black Widow post-credit scene. I just think we're setting something up like a Suicide Squad-esque TV show or movie with these morally gray characters, because they are piling up.
Fair enough, yeah. And obviously I could be completely wrong, but I hold steadfast 100% that John Walker doesn't make it out of this. I believe that, and I believe this now more than ever. I think John Walker, it's a little much to say but I think John Walker is one of the best written characters that we've ever had in the MCU. I think what they've done with him and the complexity they've given him and the constant back and forth of showing the good and the bad and the struggle between both has been brilliantly done. But I just believe that if he makes it out of this show, his arc is kind of done. Okay. I feel like there's only like in my opinion, I think there's 2 directions they could go. I think they could double down and he could really become just this unhinged maniac, or he could wisen up and I think he comes out as this kind of heroic martyr. But I don't think he makes it out. I think in some way or another he gets taken out.
Yeah. Do you think they'll extract the serum from his blood though? Because that was the biggest thing that I got from the Val conversation, was that there are people you have the serum in you, and there are people that are interested in that now.
But potentially, but I like if that happens, I think that's a post-credits thing. Kind of like the when they referenced Essex in the end of Apocalypse. Like I think it's one of those things.
Oh, that never paid off.
No, it did not. But neither did that film, though. So,
I like that one.
I mean, box office wise, they never paid off after that.
I mean, I like Dark Phoenix.
Dark Phoenix lost money. Dark Phoenix lost money.
Yeah.
And what's it? The other one lost
Dark
money
Phoenix,
too.
It's a bad movie, like subjectively, but yeah, we that I don't have anything else other than that.
Yeah, and so with that, guys, I think we're ready. You know, we are at the end. Next week is going to be a very interesting episode. I'm looking forward to coming back here and talking about it. With that being said, though, Nikki, where can people find you?
Tomorrow night, TMG After Dark. I think we're doing that, right? Yeah, we're doing that. That's tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, always. It's Friday. I don't know what day it is. I've lost my mind. Aaron, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on everything TMG related every one more Friday, but next Friday we will be back for our final episode of our Falcon and Winter Soldier weekly review, so please be sure to tune into that once again. Also, our schedule every Saturday nights we have After Dark at 9 p.m. EST. Every Sunday we have the Supernova Show at noon EST. Every Monday we have Schmo Talks at 7 p.m. EST, and I can confirm on this episode that our Monday episode of Schmo Talks will actually be my first proper fan interview. I will be sitting down and having a discussion with one Kevin Poss, who is not only a fan of the Schmodown, but he is the head of our TM Geek League. And we will be announcing the first slate of upcoming matches on the actual episode. So for those of you watching the channel who are also interested in TM Geek or even participating in TM Geek, those matches will be announced on that episode. So be sure to tune in and check it out. And every Tuesday afternoon, Matt Beer and Dr. Spaceman Alan Shepard have canceled this show, which discusses all the latest in politics. That being said, my name is Aaron Knoll. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys next week on TMG.